Hello and welcome, I'm Thomas Porteous and you're watching NewsX World. Let's take a look at some of the top stories this hour. Israel strikes Hamas leaders in Qatar's capital Doha, killing 6, including a Qatari security officer, though Hamas says its top team survived. Qatar condemns the attack as a blatant violation of international law, while Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu insists there will be no immunity for Hamas leaders. Ukraine warns that Vladimir Putin is escalating his war and testing the West after drones violated Polish airspace during Russian strikes. Foreign Minister Andrzej Sabiga says a weak response will only provoke more aggression, with missiles and drones pushing deeper into Europe. French President Emmanuel Macron names 39-year-old Defence Minister Sébastien Lecornu as Prime Minister, signalling continuity with his pro-business agenda. The pick, a loyalist, could alienate left-wing allies and leave Macron reliant on far-right support in Parliament. Soldiers patrol Kathmandu as an indefinite curfew grips Nepal's capital after days of deadly anti-graft protests that forced Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli to resign. The unrest, sparked by a social media ban, left 19 dead when police used tear gas and rubber bullets to disperse demonstrators. Iran and the UN nuclear watchdog announced a deal to resume inspections at facilities damaged by US and Israeli airstrikes in June, though details remain unclear. Tehran warns the agreement will collapse if Europe reimposes sanctions, even as it faces pressure to account for enriched uranium stockpiles. President Donald Trump calls on the European Union to impose tariffs of up to 100% on China and India to force Vladimir Putin to end the war in Ukraine. The push comes amid heavy Russian strikes and failed peace talks, as Trump warns of tougher sanctions while pursuing trade deals with India. The White House says it will support a forensic review of a letter purposely signed by President Donald Trump in a birthday book for Jeffrey Epstein. Trump denies writing the note, which features a sketch and a reference to secrets, with aides insisting the signature is not his. 2 Brazilian Supreme Court justices vote to convict former President Jair Bolsonaro of leading a criminal conspiracy to overturn the 2022 election. The 5-judge panel is now 1 vote away from a majority verdict that could collapse Bolsonaro, a coup plotter. Our top story now today, US President Donald Trump has said that his administration is continuing negotiations to address trade barriers with India. President Trump expressed optimism over the finalization of the trade deal. He also stated that he would speak to Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and that there would be no difficulty in concluding the deal. This marks a shift in tone. President Trump has imposed 50% tariffs on Indian exports to the United States, citing Russian oil purchases. Indian Prime Minister Modi reciprocated the optimism, calling Washington and Delhi close friends and neutral partners. He expressed confidence over the conclusion of the trade deal negotiations and said he is looking forward to speaking with President Trump as well. Later, Trump reposted Prime Minister Modi's message on Truth Social. The sanctions and statements from the United States have strained US-India ties, but these latest remarks signal a thaw in relations. We are now joined by Sharad Kohli. He is an economist and he joins us live from New Delhi. Sharad, thank you very much for joining us. Okay, sorry, there's some technical issues. Sharad should just be joining us in just a second to discuss a possible thaw during recent India-US relations. Of course, Donald Trump imposed a 50% tariff on Indian imports, 25% initially for not reaching a trade deal, and then an additional 25% for the purchase of Russian oil from New Delhi. This leaves India being one of Donald Trump's highest tariff countries in the world, despite a seemingly close friendship with Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and, of course, President Donald Trump. Donald Trump has said that trade negotiations are ongoing. However, a deal is yet to be reached. Of course, we will continue to bring you all updates in regards to this story, and we'll be bringing them straight to you. Hopefully we get a guest very soon to discuss the implications of this, what it could mean for that India-US relationship, and how it is affecting India, and the lax that could be put on the Indian economy if a trade deal is reached. So we will hopefully be discussing that in just a second. Okay, we're now joined by Sharad Kohli. He is an economist from New Delhi. Sharad, pleasure to talk to you. Thank you very much for taking the time to talk to us. First of all, let's talk about a possible thaw here in relations and the current struggles that the Indian economy does face by these recently imposed 50% tariffs, some of the highest in the world. If a trade deal here is reached, Sharad, what kind of lax could that put on New Delhi's economy?
Well, my greetings to NewsX World audience and to you. I think if the deal is reached, it would probably give us the relief from the $50–60 billion of export constraint that we are facing right now, because 50% tariffs basically meant embargo on about $50–60 billion of export from India to the US. Now, if we look at these recent tweets from President Trump and then a reciprocatory tweet from Prime Minister Modi, well, I think I'll have to wait before we start celebrating, because knowing President Trump's mood swings, we should not forget that he's also made another tweet where he's pressurizing Europe to impose 100% tariffs on India and China because of buying oil from Russia. So I think these are two contradictory moves, and so therefore I would only like to believe when it gets on the ground. But in the meanwhile, a very positive step, I would say, especially after his trade advisor, Peter Navarro, has been making some very nasty statements against India, calling it as Modi's war, calling India as laundromat. I mean, though that language is definitely not acceptable as far as India is concerned. So I think President Trump will have to ensure that the people around him, his advisors, they need to be very careful in choosing the words. They cannot make such nasty comments because that will go against the deal. Well, so that I'm aware that the Indian Commerce Minister, Piyush Goyal, has been informing the countrymen that there is a dialogue going on, and by November we can expect the deal. And this is only getting ratified by President Trump's tweet that India and America are good friends. India is a great country. Prime Minister Modi is a great prime minister, and so on and so forth. And then, of course, as a matter of courtesy, as a matter of diplomacy, Prime Minister Modi, when his name was mentioned, he obviously had to reciprocate by a corresponding sweet message. But then right now it's only words. We'll have to wait and see if it converts down to action. But having said that, I don't think India is going to be substantially impacted, even if he decides to hold on to the 50% tariffs, because India has already started looking for alternate markets. India is doing reforms within the country to boost consumption and to boost demand. So I really don't think it's going to have any major impact. It's good if the deal happens, nothing like it, because there's a lot of industry in India being impacted. We talk of textiles, we talk of leather, we talk of gems and jewelry, we talk of a few other machinery, we talk of a few other sectors. Yes, they are being impacted as of now, but ever since the announcement was made on the 2nd of April, I think the Indian industry and the Commerce Ministry supporting it had already started looking for alternates, and a lot of exporters that I know they are looking at alternate markets. So if it happens, well and good, it'll be definitely welcome. We have a reason to celebrate. But even if it doesn't happen, we don't have a substantial reason to worry. And these tweets, in the middle of all that was going on, there was some venom being spilled over from the from the White House. I hope this tweet will probably provide relief from that, and things should move forward in a positive direction.
Okay, yes, Shara, do stay with us as we have further updates and Donald Trump comments. The president has urged the European Union to impose tariffs of up to 100% on China and India in a move aimed at pressuring Russian President Vladimir Putin. According to a US official and an EU diplomat, Trump made the request during a conference call with EU sanctions. Envoy David O'Sullivan and other officials currently visiting Washington for sanctions coordination talks have stated the push comes amid concerns over China and India's continued purchases of Russian oil, which are seen as critical to sustaining Russia's economy during its ongoing invasion of Ukraine. Although Trump increased tariffs on India by 25% points this summer due to its ties with Russia, he has not yet followed through on harsher measures he had previously suggested. Sharad, we are just talking about a thaw in US and India relations and a possible trade deal being announced, but news of this certainly sounds worrying for the Indian economy. How much would an 100% tariff from the EU on New Delhi impact the economy in India?
Well, I would not like to take these, these assertions being made by President Trump on the EU very seriously, because EU has been very independent in dealing with India. India is already in negotiation as far as a free trade agreement is concerned with EU for a long time now. So I really don't think EU is going to heed to that request of imposing 100% tariffs. EU is heavily dependent on imports from India and China both. So it may be a statement made by President Trump. If you ask me personally speaking, well, I don't really take President Trump's all of his statements very, very seriously. I think so does the rest of the world. They follow the same pattern. I don't think I should be very worried about what he's saying, because, as I said, these are very contradictory moves. On one side, he's trying to praise Prime Minister Modi. He's trying to praise the friendship of India and the US. On the other side, he's trying to tell EU that, all right, you impose 100% tariffs. So these are absolute contradictions and quite a dichotomy, I would say. So I would not rather like to take that seriously. Well, India and America, I must tell you, are natural allies. We are entwined, quite substantially. There are people-to-people relationships. And the entire tech sector in America is being run by Indians. The entire medical sector in America is being controlled directly or indirectly by Indians. And, there are defense relationship, there is space relationship. NASA and ISRO, they work together. So I really don't think there is any scope for President Trump to stretch this beyond a limit. I was always hopeful this is going to turn around. So I would like to disregard the assertion given by President Trump to Europe to impose 100% tariffs. That's not going to happen, I can tell you with conviction.
Yes, and of course, Donald Trump has seen what will be alarming images to him of Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Chinese President Xi Jinping meeting for the first time, and seeming to be warming relations also. Do you think the attempts by Trump to be closer to India now are due to that meeting?
Well, I think President Trump did get a bit emotional after seeing that, Prime Minister Modi sitting with Putin and Xi Jinping. Well, he even said that, I've lost a friend. And then he said we used to walk in the rose gardens and so on. So he was getting a bit touchy, a bit emotional. Then he said, no, we haven't lost India. They're very much with us. We are friends with India. So I think he's probably can't take India falling into another group. And, as far as India is concerned, we do not follow alignment. We are a non-aligned nation. We have similar relations with Russia, and we value the American friendship as also. And we are trying to normalize our relations with China as well. So India is friends to everyone, I should say. So I don't think there is any reason for President Trump to get worried right now on India falling into another camp. And then probably he might be worried at his own front that he's probably losing a friend, because India was a great strategic partner in Asia against China for that matter. And to lose India to that group, obviously he must be repenting that loss in his mind, although India hasn't been transitioned to another group. India has been reiterating the fact that we still, India and America friendship is still there. We are in dialogue. We value the relationship. So India is not giving any negative comment for America, unlike some of the people in the White House, like Peter Navarro, who are making nasty comments. So India has been very pragmatic. India has been very prudent in making the remarks, in making statements. So I really don't think we are going to change sides, change groups, change positions. We are as good as we were earlier before this whole thing started.
Yeah, Sharad, do stay with us for one final update. The White House trade advisor, Peter Navarro, has once again voiced his frustration on the social media platform X. This time, his target is not just India's purchase of Russian oil, but also the Indians who have been fact-checking and adding context to his posts. In a 7-part post, Navarro accused what he called India's keyboard minions of hijacking X's community notes to bury the facts. He further criticised India for maintaining high trade barriers while continuing to access US markets with little restrictions. Navarro's comments have sparked controversy. We are now once again joined by Sharad Kohli. Navarro comes amid many critics of India. They say that India faces little restrictions when it comes to the access of the US economy. They also say, Sharad, that India is funding Vladimir Putin's war machine in his invasion of Ukraine. What do you say to this criticism, and why does India have the leverage, and why does it act the way it does?
Well, I completely disregard the comments being made by Peter Navarro. I don't think India has restrictions. India has restrictions on the basis of the structure of its economy. India is an agrarian economy. 60 to 70% of the people depend directly or indirectly on agriculture. India is also the largest dairy producer in the world. So we have all the right in the world to protect our two main sectors, which is what the core of the dialogue was. I don't know why Peter Navarro is getting so touchy. And the choice of words, as I said earlier, which Peter Navarro has been using, is definitely not following the principles of diplomacy. To call India as a laundromat, and he's accusing India of snatching away the jobs because India is funding Russian war. Well, it's a very, very remote relationship. He's trying to connect things which are totally unconnected. He said because India is buying oil from Russia, therefore Russia is getting money, and therefore we have to support Ukraine because Ukraine is getting hit. We have to pump in money in Ukraine. Therefore, we are not able to create jobs in the US. I think that is connecting apples and oranges together. They have no connection whatsoever. So I think Peter Navarro needs to hold on to his guns, which is the blabbermouth that he's turning out to be. I completely disregard, refute the comments made by Peter Navarro. I think he should be more responsible. Being in the White House, being in the inner coterie of President Trump, he has to be very careful in making these statements, which is why you saw a fact check coming from X. And I think he deserved all of that. I don't think he's liking that somebody is trying to contest what he's saying. Very irresponsible statements, I would say. I completely refute and disregard those statements.
Okay, thank you very much, Sharad, for joining us. Always a pleasure to speak to you and get your insight on those economic matters. We now move over to Europe next, where French President Emmanuel Macron has appointed Sébastien Lecornu, a loyalist and former conservative protégé, as the country's new prime minister, making him Macron's 5th premier in less than 2 years. Following the announcement, Lecornu has taken to X, sharing that he has been tasked with building a government that focuses on stability, defends France's interests, and foremost, serves the French people. The appointment has sparked criticism from left-wing parties, with some planning protests and a motion of no confidence. The far-right National Rally, however, has indicated a willingness to cooperate on budget matters, leaving Lecornu dependent on a fragile parliamentary consensus. Some leaders from France's main right-wing party, the Republicans, also shared their reactions. Let's listen to them.
Écoutez, très sincèrement, je souhaite bonne route à Sébastien Lecornu, qui a été un ministre solide dans mon gouvernement en particulier et à un poste sensible, notamment dans le contexte international actuel. Je voudrais aussi remercier les ministres républicains, et en particulier Bruno Retailleau, mais aussi les autres, qui ont été de très bons ministres, qui ont montré leur sens de responsabilité, qui ont retroussé leurs manches dans un moment où le pays attend de l'unité. Et je sais que s'ils en ont les moyens techniques et financiers, ils continueront à prendre leurs responsabilités dans l'intérêt du pays.
En tout cas, le choix de Sébastien Lecornu comme Premier ministre, ce n'est pas le choix d'un Premier ministre socialiste. Et ça, je m'en félicite. Après, je sais que pour lui, la tâche va être rude. Et je pense que dans les moments que traverse la France, qui sont des moments très graves, nous avons une responsabilité particulière. Les Français souhaitent que nous trouvions des accords. Moi, je crois beaucoup. Si on veut dépasser un certain nombre de blocages, je crois qu'il y a la possibilité de construire un projet qui satisfasse des Français, ce que j'appelle la majorité nationale. La question, ce n'est pas d'aller au gouvernement avec tel ou tel. La question, c'est pour savoir pour quoi faire, pour quelle politique. Ce que je suis en train de vous dire, c'est que je crois que beaucoup de Français veulent justement que l'État se serre la ceinture, veulent qu'il y ait une politique migratoire très ferme, veulent une politique de sécurité, d'autorité. Et sur ces bases-là, on peut, je pense, vraiment construire une feuille de route, un vrai projet qui nous permettrait d'y travailler.
Meanwhile, Lecornu's immediate priority as Prime Minister will be to build agreements across political forces to finalise the 2026 budget, navigate France's rising debt challenges and ensure his government can advance French President Macron's pro-business reforms without derailment. We stay in France next, where Parisians showed mixed reactions to the appointment of Sébastien Lecornu as France's new Prime Minister. While some view his nomination as a move of continuity and stability, others expressed concern over France's political and economic future. Let's listen in to some of their reactions.
Décevant, comme d'habitude, parce que ça reste la droite qui domine, quoi, donc un peu décevant. Mais après, moi, en fait, je suis pas choquée. Je suis plus déçue comme d'habitude et je pense que moi, je vais être déçue jusqu'à ce que ce président s'en aille. Donc, moi, ça me choque pas.
Sur ce coup-là, Macron, il fait plutôt un bon choix parce que mine de rien, il nomme quelqu'un qui a un petit peu l'image de, je sais pas si je pourrais dire comme ça, mais de sauvegarde du pays, d'unité nationale. C'est le ministre des Armées, c'est pas n'importe lequel, c'est un ministre qui fait consensus, qui a un peu cet intérêt suprême de la nation. Et puis, je pense même qu'au-delà de ça, c'est un bon message qu'envoyer parce que Lecornu, il n'y a pas trop d'encartage politique et on a besoin, je pense, dans ce moment d'avoir un président, enfin un Premier ministre qui fait consensus, quoi, pour avancer.
Jusqu'à 2027, j'ai plus aucun espoir et même pour 2027, j'ai pas beaucoup d'espoir non plus, pour être honnête. Je pense qu'il va falloir un petit bout de temps avant que la France change vraiment et soit de nouveau écoutée et qu'on écoute de nouveau le peuple parce que là, par prendre des 49.3, on n'est juste plus écouté. On a beau voter, ça sert même plus à rien. On continue à le faire parce qu'on a tous des petits espoirs, mais le fait est que ça ne change plus rien. Donc non, j'ai pas vraiment d'espoir en fait.
Voilà, la situation du pays est catastrophique. Le pays est totalement bloqué, que ce soit à l'Assemblée ou demain dans la rue. Donc franchement, non, je pense que l'avenir est assez noir.
Poland has called the recent violation of its airspace during Russia's attack on Ukraine an act of aggression, describing it as a likely large-scale provocation. As per reports, early on Tuesday morning, police discovered a damaged drone in the eastern village of Kinaskawa. In response, Prime Minister Donald Tusk called an emergency government meeting and stressed that the situation seems under control, urging the public not to panic. Meanwhile, the Polish army confirmed that some drones were shot down, while several others were radar tracked by Polish and allied assets. Territorial defence forces have also been activated for ground searches of possible crash sites, and citizens are warned not to approach any fragments of downed objects. Warsaw's Chopin Airport has reopened after the incident, and authorities have confirmed no casualties from the drone's intrusion. Moreover, Prime Minister Tusk added that Poland is ready to respond to any attacks or provocations, with consultations from allies ongoing, and confirmed that the country remains in constant contact with NATO command. We will, of course, bring you all updates in regards to that situation. Okay, we have further updates from that developing story where Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has reacted to this incident, saying that it sets a dangerous precedent for Europe and called for a strong response from allies. He added that at least 8 Russian drones were targeting Poland's direction overnight and that Russia used around 415 drones and 40 missiles in the evening. Kiev also said that the violation shows Russian President Vladimir Putin is testing the West. Additionally, Ukraine's foreign minister also said that Russian drones flying into Poland showed Putin's impunity. This is, of course, a developing situation. We will bring you updates in regards to. We are now joined by Professor Veselin Popovsky, and he is a professor and vice dean at Jindal Global Law School, and he joins us live from New Delhi. Professor Popovsky, thank you very much for joining us. Do you agree with Volodymyr Zelensky's statements there that this is a test for Vladimir Putin here? He is testing the West with these provocative actions.
Yes, absolutely. It's clearly a test for the Poland, but also the NATO members and how they will react. We hope for a strong, united reaction here, because this is an act of aggression by any definition in international law. What Russia did in territory of a country neighboring Ukraine, peaceful and never ever having anything to worry about. Russia is basically again and again acting as an aggressor here. Obviously, Putin has little choices left. Effectively, he couldn't achieve anything in Ukraine. His goals there are in shambles. His economy is in shambles. He cannot get the Donetsk region. He's losing soldiers every day. And it could be, the explanation of this could be somehow to distract the attention of even of the Russian population, and somehow to lie, to manipulate that it is a war with NATO, not with Ukraine. But all these attempts are obviously nonsensical. They don't lead to anywhere. So basically, yes, Volodymyr Zelensky is absolutely right. It's a test for NATO, and hopefully NATO will do the proper thing, which is, I am repeating this many times, no-fly zone over Ukraine, guaranteed by NATO, will be the only step ahead. I'm sure Poland, but also other countries. By the way, Baltic states, Finland, other neighbors of Russia have also experienced similar provocation in terms of mobilization of large number of Russian troops on the border, weapons, other provocations. So yes, I hope NATO will regard this as a crucial provocation and test and will respond accordingly.
Professor Veselin Popovsky, thank you very much for joining us here on the programme. It is always a pleasure to talk to you on the ongoing war in Russia-Ukraine. We will, of course, bring you all the updates when it comes to that developing situation in Poland. We move now over to West Asia, where Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi and International Atomic Energy Agency Chief Rafael Grossi have signed a new cooperation framework as Iran agreed to renew engagement with the UN nuclear watchdog after months of suspended collaboration. The agreement, signed in Cairo, was hailed by the IAEA chief as a step in the right direction. Egypt has been facilitating talks between Iran and the IAEA, and the Egyptian Foreign Minister Badr Abdelati welcomed the cooperation framework. In a statement, Iranian Foreign Minister warned that implementation of UN sanctions on Iran would mean the end of the practical steps outlined in this agreement. He also said the agreement signed in Cairo fully complies with the law passed by Iran's parliament after the US and Israeli strikes. The Egyptian foreign minister expressed optimism that this agreement would open the door to additional steps to avoid further escalation. Let's listen in.
I shall stress that in case of any hostile act against my country, and in the event of reimposition of terminated United Nations Security Council resolutions, Iran will regard these practical steps as terminated.
This is a step in the right direction. This is a door we are opening. And of course, there are many things that still need to happen. We have to implement it in good faith. Others around the world can help us, and I am sure that they will do.
إننا نأمل أن يفتحوا هذا الاتفاق الباب أمام خطوات إضافية من شأنها تجنب التصعيد وتقريب وجهات النظر مع الدول الأوروبية الثلاث الE3 وبما يسمح كذلك بالتوصل إلى تفاهم يفضي إلى العودة إلى طاولة المفاوضات بين إيران والولايات المتحدة تمهيداً للتوصل إلى اتفاق شامل ومرضٍ ومستدام للملف النووي الإيراني وبما يحقق الأمن والاستقرار الإقليمي والدولي.
هسته‌ای ایران با توجه به اینکه اتفاقاتی که در این 2 ماه افتاد باعث نگرانی همه کشورهای منطقه شد، مصر و بقیه کشورهای منطقه خیلی سریع تجاوز رژیم صهیونیستی و آمریکا رو محکوم کردن به تأسیسات هسته‌ای صلح‌آمیز ایران. مصر تلاش کرده در این 1 ماه اخیر تسهیل کنه تماس‌ها و گفتگوهای ایران با آژانس بین‌المللی انرژی اتمی. البته ما با آژانس بین‌المللی انرژی اتمی رابطه مستقیمی داریم، نمایندگی دائم ما در وین فعال هست، ولی به هر حال مثل برخی دیگر از کشورها که دغدغه صلح و ثبات در منطقه رو دارن، مصر هم تلاش کرده از مساعی جمعی خودش استفاده بکنه برای تسهیل روندهای مرتبط با موضوع هسته‌ای.
We now move over to our guest, Shruti Dasgupta, who is an international affairs expert, and she joins us live from New Delhi. Shruti, thank you very much for taking the time and talking to us. Shruti, how significant of an update is this? Of course, those uranium enrichment sites, the center of the 12-day war between Israel, Iran, and then the United States. Why is this such an important development?
Well, it is important because the IAEA cannot prove or deny any rumors that were part of the entire war. How much of the facility was destroyed? Is there radiation leakage? How much of the uranium was actually enriched, although they had warned about a particular limit? So all of these need particular inspections, and Iran was not cooperating until now, till the time the E3, France, Germany, and England or UK decided to apply for snapback of sanctions in the UN, and then they realized that they might have a larger war apart from what they've been facing up till now. And so they have agreed to at least allow the IAEA inspections. The modalities of this particular agreement come exactly on time. I feel that they're trying to be as nice as possible because they are looking at 18th October 2025, which is where the first of the sunset clauses of the JPCOA come in action, where they will be able to officially operate more than just the Natanz facility. Although apparently, which we are all hoping to see in the IAEA reports, whether other facilities were being used and how they were being used is something we are still yet to confirm, despite the 12-day war. So at least now, after the sunset sanctions, they would probably have access to a larger amount of stockpile that they can be doing, that they can do a higher enrichment limit that they can reach, as well as access to other legal access to at least other facilities. So these are the clauses that they are looking at. I believe in after the 12-day war, they had also offered to restrict their uranium enrichment to 3% or below, so that they can have access to their frozen assets in foreign nations. And this is something that US has also kind of said yes to after they had bombed the uranium sites and the nuclear sites in Iran during that war. They have asked to lift off sanctions. They would probably want the Iranian oil flowing back into the market legally. So all of these is something that Iran considers good for its economy, good for its people. And so they are allowing, as of now, to put up with the IAEA inspections, and this is why this particular report is good, because it seems that Iran is not hell-bent on breaking all rules and have a all-out war on its hand with more than one nation.
Yes, thank you very much, Rukida Scoops, for joining us here on the programme. Pleasure to talk to you as always. Well, that is all that we have time for now, but we will continue to bring you more news updates from around the world.